Hebrews, still in chapter 3, and it. One of the things I think I see in this is would be normal for a Hebrew is that they lay out a case, layer upon layer, and one of the aspects of that is that it kind of points to the writer being pretty sophisticated, and I think it's a safe assumption to say very well educated, but okay. Ready for verse 12. See to it, brothers, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. Boy, just about the best advice there could be, isn't it? And I mean, it's pretty self-evident what he's trying to say. When he says see to it, he's not, I mean, we're talking intention here, okay? You intentionally, you see to it, you take responsibility that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart. For a Jew, before Jesus, the point was behavioral, adherence to the law, obedience. And that kind of obscured eventually what the greater portion of the whole scheme was, and that was love. Isn't that Deuteronomy 6? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Well, that was what Jesus said was the greatest commandment of all. And that is a matter of heart. In Scripture, the heart, it's not quite the same as what I think most people in our time associate with the heart. Most people in our time associate romantic love with the heart. And that is one aspect, but it's not the whole. The heart, in the day that Hebrews was written, was the inmost of a person's being. It's where their intentions resided. It's where their affections were. It was the essence of them, as opposed to the mind, which was what we thought. Okay, the heart. When our heart gets hardened, it shows up in our behaviors. And we often don't see this hardening for ourselves. Others see it much more easily and quickly than we see it for ourselves. I've had seasons of a hardened heart. And for me, most of the time, I talked about this last time, but it really comes back to this. For me, most of the time, the hardening of my heart was the result of me not getting what I wanted. Another way to say that is, it was a result of disappointment. And looking at the story, the history of the Jews wandering for 40 years in the wilderness, which is what he just wrote about, you see lots of disappointment in the Jews because they didn't always get what they wanted. This is a big problem for me, and it may be for you too. and the majority of the problem stems from two things. My inability to sometimes distinguish and differentiate between what I need and what I merely want. There are times when they overlap, where I want what I need. But there are a lot of times when I want something that is not a need. That's not always sinful, but there is a problem when we can't differentiate between the two. And it's rooted in the second thing. I am a intrinsically selfish being. I want what I want. This is a distortion of one of God's gifts to us, and that is the urge for self-preservation, which is a good gift. Without it, we'd not care for ourselves. We would not sustain our own lives as best we can with what we've got. We would just, God did this as a gift so that humankind would continue. But I think it is the result of a sin nature that we've all inherited, that we can't differentiate, and so we get jerked around more by what we want and by what we need. And often, you may have experienced this, we are kind of pushed into examining the difference when we don't have what we need, and we're reduced to the level of need, not just want. Okay, since I'm on this high horse, I'm going to go a little farther with it to say our culture is a culture of want, not need. I freely admit there are lots of people in our country, in our culture, who they have been taken down to the level of need, not want. I think about the survivors of the hurricanes in North Carolina. Right now, they are, most in fact, are encamped in tents in the most temporary of all kinds of arrangements, which there's a problem with that right now, because the temperatures are freezing, and they are down to the level of need. Do they want a house? Yeah, but they kind of need more than they've got right now. Okay, needs and wants. Disappointment. See to it that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. One of the results of this sinful, unbelieving heart is that it turns us away from God. This, I think, is for many people, this is a reality. Through disappointment and hurt and sometimes just selfish immaturity, the disappointments have pushed them to an unbelieving heart. But see, there's two pieces here: sinful and unbelieving. When when I practice sin, when I give in to sin, and I do this routinely and often enough, continuously, I'm likely to become unbelieving. And here's one of the reasons why is to continue that sin behavior, I kind of have to somehow either dull my conscience, and that happens all the time, or else I rearrange my beliefs. And that rearrangement usually comes in the form of, well, this isn't really a sin. It's just a choice. I'm not hurting anybody. An unbelieving heart, the core of who we are, where this deepest part of us can become unbelieving. Well, simple. I made it complex. See to it that you don't develop a sinful and unbelieving heart. In verse 13, but encourage one another daily, as long as it's called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. So here's the antidote for the sinful and unbelieving heart. Encouragement. Giving and receiving encouragement. This is one of the reasons that I think an active participation in a church is important, because it should be a place where we give and receive encouragement. And if you're in a church where that is absent, I can say, find another church. That church is not the only one in town. And if it is, maybe you need to start another church. One of the marks of a godly and blessed church is that it encourages. Its members encourage one another. Okay, let's go down one more level. I think this is one of the reasons that we need to have community. Being in the church, I think it's significant. I'd almost say essential, but being in a church is not what gets me into heaven or keeps me out. It's only what can help sustain me in my journey. And one level deeper in community is the smaller group. It's been 30 years now or more that, more than 30 years, that the full-on concept of small groups has been a part of most church life. They call them different things, and I think the hip phrasing now is life groups. And I don't care, call them whatever you want. But we need to be in a relationship with the smaller number of people where it's safe for me to disclose my struggles, and safe for me to encourage others in their struggles, not to fix them, not to advise them. See, those weren't the words. Encourage. And there are times when giving unsolicited advice is not encouraging. Encourage one another as long as it's called today. In other words, this is a daily, right now thing. If you don't have a smaller circle of trusted Christian friends, begin by praying for God to bring those people into your life. When we isolate ourselves from other believers, we set ourselves up for all kinds of emotional and spiritual and even physical problems. Well, okay. That's it for today. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.